So the first question here is from David. So he wants to know how to exit when price breaks above a moving average, right? So let's say, for example, we're in a short trade here. We get into this downtrend. We're in a short trade, and then David wants to create an exit when price breaks above a moving average. And actually, David is actually running this on a Renko chart. So I'll switch over here. All right, this looks a little more representative of the screenshot that David sent in with his question here. Recap, let's say if you're going short here, David wants to exit whenever a bar closes on the other side of the moving average here. All right, let's get BlackBird open here. So the first thing I'm going to need are some trade signals. So we'll use Bloodhound here, and I'm going to use, so I've got this crossover test Bloodhound template here that I use that just creates a whole bunch of trade signals just for testing purposes. All right, let's click OK. There we go. I'll use the price inflection with a MACD filter. Click OK. All right, so you'll notice here that when you add a Bloodhound system, when you add the Bloodhound indicator to your BlackBird logic, it's going to ask you to reload your chart, right? So that way we can get Bloodhound loaded into BlackBird, but also so we can get the Bloodhound output showing on the chart as well. All right, so let's reload the chart here. There we go. All right, we're still working on this, weird artifact here that happens, but if you do notice that, your Bloodhound shows up on the price panel, so we can see up on top here, these are the bars, right? And then we have Bloodhound down here at 0. So sometimes Bloodhound gets put on the wrong panel. So this is real easy to fix. All you gotta do is click on the Bloodhound plot, right? Just click on the plot and drag it down. So you want to drag it with your mouse. And when you see that blue highlight down here, let go, right? And that basically what you're doing is you're dragging the indicator onto its own subpanel. So this is actually kind of one of the features of, that was a feature of the chart, right? So like I could take my moving average and I can drag it onto its own subpanel like that. See, I just dragged my EMA onto its own subpanel here, or I can drag it back up like so. Anyways, okay, so let's get those signals showing. There we go. All right, so I've got some trade signals to work with. So now we need to work on building this exit here. David, the easiest thing to do would be to build this exit logic into your Bloodhound, into a Bloodhound logic template. So the easiest way to approach this is to use an exit signal from your Bloodhound logic. And yeah, I've got one called exit, but I don't think it actually does anything. I think it's just there so I can use it as an example, but I don't think this exit actually has any logic in it. Let's find out here. Oh, there is something. It's just a 5-bar direction. It does something here, but so the best way to approach this is really to build a Bloodhound logic here that has basically a comparison solver checking to see, or actually a crossover solver. Yeah, you want to check to see if the closing price crosses your moving average. So if you get the closing price crossing it, right, then that is your condition there, David. And you would just implement that into a exit logic template and just enable your exit signals there. So that would be the most appropriate way to do this with BlackBird. But there is a secondary way to do this. So let's kind of create something here. Yeah. So to do this, I need a stop loss. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll just keep it a simple 10-tick stop loss. So if you want to build that exit condition into your stop loss order, right, then what we need to do is, right, go into the trailing actions and enable the trailing actions, and then I can create a trailing rule. And all right, so we're going to flatten this trade, when the bar crosses the EMA here. So we're going to go into the triggers, right, to do this as a trailing rule here. And we're going to do price versus indicator. Right? Makes sense? So and literally in David's question, it's about, when the close of the bar, is on the other side of the EMA indicator of the moving average. Right? So there you go. Input A, that's going to be the close of the bar. That's already done for us. And then input B, well, that's going to be our moving average. All right, so let's go in here, and there's the SMA. So let's go replace that SMA with the EMA. All right, there's the EMA. And in this example, David is using the 18 period. So make sure you adjust the period of your moving average to match, like so. All right, so now we need to decide which modes do we want. All right, so on the chart, right, this is an example of a short trade. So for a short trade, if A is equal or below, no, actually, so remember, input A is the closing price. So if we look at our chart, right, the closing price of the bar is above the moving average. So A is actually above B. Remember, B is our moving average. So for a short trade, we actually want A above B. Right? A is the closing price, B is the moving average. So we want A above B. And then for the long mode, we'll just reverse it and go A below B. All right, there we go. So that's our trigger condition, looking for this exit condition. And then the action, well, in the action, we are going to flatten the position, like so. And that's it. All right, there, David. So that is how you would build that into a stop loss trailing roll. But again, I want to iterate that the best way to address this is to create yourself an exit signal logic template there. And to do that, this would simply just be a crossover solver, David. Right? You're just looking for the closing price to cross over your moving average. So it would be a crossover solver. So David's asking, yeah, so if I was to do this in Bloodhound, just use a crossover solver. Exactly. Yep, you got it, David. Okay, so here's a follow-up question. David's asking, can we trail the stop loss by the EMA? And absolutely. So let's create another trailing roll here. All right, so we're going to trail the EMA 18. Let's see. All right, yeah, so I guess it looks like based on our trade signals, price is going to be well above our EMA. So I guess, yeah, we could start the trailing immediately. So, right, so just, one thing to consider is, when your stop loss is trailing an indicator, you should look at your trade signals and analyze, is it safe to start to have your stop loss follow that indicator immediately as soon as the trade is placed? Because sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So sometimes you need to build a delay condition in before you start trailing an indicator. But as we can see here on the chart, yeah, there's plenty of distance between the, where the close of the bar, where price is at versus the indicator. So we'll just start trailing immediately. And so to do that, to trail an indicator, you just simply go to the action and the move to, well, we want to move that stop loss to an indicator value. And so here's where we just go and select the EMA. There's our EMA. Let's make sure to change it to an 18-period EMA. And you can add an offset to it. So if you want it, if you want your stop loss like 1 tick below your moving average or 2 ticks below it, right? Or maybe you want 1 tick above your moving average, so anyways, right? You can easily add an offset to that. And then the last thing, right? When your stop loss is trailing an indicator, you're almost always going to want the repeat to be indefinitely, right? So I'd say 99% of the time you're going to want repeat to be set to indefinitely, right? Like so. And so that's it. So there's no trigger. We're just going to start trailing that EMA immediately, and repeat is set to indefinitely. Okay, so David's saying, okay, so what if we wanted the trailing to wait until we have 10 ticks of profit? All right, yeah. So if you want to build some kind of a delay into the trailing, and so in this case, David wants to wait for 10 ticks of profit, then let's do that here. So for a 10 tick profit, that's probably the most easiest ones to do. We're going to use the delay condition and enable ticks of movement, right? And in this case, a profitable direction. And it already defaults to 10 ticks, right? So we could build, this delay option, has a lot of different conditions to select from. You can look for a movement in a loss direction, so you can say, if the market moves 10 ticks, against my trade, right, that would be 10 ticks in loss, or 10 ticks in either profit or loss, right? Points, you can use points of movement. So if you're trading stocks, maybe you want to use points, right? Or if you're trading maybe a higher time frame on the ES futures, you might want to use points instead, right? And then of course there's currency. So if you want it to be a dollar amount, something like that, or a euro amount, a currency amount. Okay, so anyways, yeah, so if we want to add a wait, if we want to wait for the market to move 10 ticks in a profitable direction, there we go. We just add that trigger to it. All right, so let's take this for a little test drive here. And let's see if we get a short signal here. All right, no, let's move the market back up. There we go. All right, so as soon as we get 10 ticks of profit, our stop loss will start trailing that EMA. There we go. Oh, you know what? I was setting the wrong. Let me neutralize this. You guys notice how there's a gap between the EMA and my stop loss here, and that is because, let's see, I think I typed in the wrong EMA period. Oh, yeah, sorry. David is using a 13 EMA. Yep. David is using an EMA. So the EMA on my chart is a 13 period. But as you guys saw, I was inputting an 18 period EMA into BlackBird, right? So that's why the stop loss is not following that EMA precisely. So, right? So this is I'm pointing this out to everybody because this is a very common mistake that people make, right? Even someone like myself, overlooks these things from time to time, right? So, so if you notice that, your stop loss isn't matching your indicator precisely, it's because the indicator on your chart has different settings than the settings you put into BlackBird, and Bloodhound. This also applies to Bloodhound too. Quite often people will email us and say, "Hey, I'm getting a signal on the wrong bar," and a lot of times it's because the indicators they have on the chart have different settings than the settings that they use in their Bloodhound logic. So this is a very easy mistake to make. So anyways, let's go fix that. Now, hold on, let me close this out here. So let's go fix that here. Let's see. So yeah, see I said trail 18 period. No, it's a 13 period. And here as well. So if we want to flatten the trade when price crosses that EMA, I made that same mistake here on this. So let's go to EMA, right? And you can see right there, I used an 18 period. So let's go over here and correct that to the 13 period EMA. There. All right, and then for the trailing roll here, trailing the EMA 13, I need to go into the action and also adjust the period of my EMA. Yeah, see it says 18 period. So let's go and correct that to 13 period. There. All right. Okay, let me pull the market down here. All right, there we go. So as soon as we get to 10 ticks here, couple more ticks. Come on, a couple more bars here. There we go. There. Now we can see our stop loss matches that EMA just perfectly. All right, there's the trailing. Just want to make an obvious comment here, just to make sure we're all on the same page, right? But so this flatten on bar cross of the EMA, so now that the stop loss is trailing the EMA, obviously this trailing rule will never get executed anymore, right? This condition will never ever get used anymore because, right, obviously that stop loss is hit, right, before this trailing rule ever becomes true, right? So I just wanted to kind of point that out, that obviously we don't need both of these trailing rules there. All right, let's see here. David is asking, how did I get the profit and loss lines so thick? Yeah, so David's asking about the P&L lines there. Simply just double click on your bar. Right, you want to bring up the data series, and it's right down here under trades. Right, it's this bottom section here under trades. So this is where you can adjust all the colors and lines for profitable trade and unprofitable. All right, David. So in your data series, down here under trades. So this is where you can turn them on and off. So this is a feature, right, of your chart.